Workman, CEO of Workman Success Systems, and I am excited to have you here. As you join the Facebook Live and you join the live meeting today, I would love for you to go into the notes section, go into the comments, and just tell us who you are and where you're from as we welcome our amazing guest, Mr. Paul Sessum, the one and only. Paul, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm fantastic. How are you today, Verl?
You know, I'm living the dream.
Love it. Yes. It's a
About,
great
about
day
a
to be
million.
alive, right?
That's right. It's about a million miles an hour. Lisa says to tell you hello. Cassie just joined us. Judy Hayes. We're gonna have a great group today as we talk about what's going on and what's new in the world. And I think it's wild what's happened in our world recently, and we have so many different things we can talk about. But before we get started, I want everybody to make sure that you like us and that you share the link. Let other people know that we're on with Paul Sessum. Paul Sessum is one of the rare master coaches at Workman Success Systems. It's very, very difficult to become a master coach, but he also has tremendous background. Paul has a 20-year career in the entertainment industry, and it's fun to get talking to Paul about the movie industry and entertaining on cruise ships and what Hollywood lifestyle is like. It's always just a joy as he talks about all the things he's done in the entertainment world. After joining Keller Williams in 2006, he created unbelievable opportunities, had tremendous growth and leadership, has helped just an enormous number of agents and brokers alike grow their own businesses and become successful. And he continues to, Paul assumed the reins at the Market Center as a team leader, while he currently serves as an outstanding group of realtors in the same area. So, Paul, I would love you to just tell us a little bit about where you are geographically and a little bit about where you serve.
I live in Los Angeles, in a little neighborhood in Los Angeles. And hello, Verl. Hello, everyone. It's the neighborhood that I live in is called Sherwood Forest. And I live here with the lovely maid Marion, who's my wife, Beth Bowles. And yes, we do run around in tights since we have a tendency to work at home quite a bit. So
that was
my
favorite Robin Hood. That was my favorite Robin Hood.
That's such a great thing, right? Men in tights. That was actually, talking about Hollywood, Roy Forge Smith was, I believe, the production designer on that years ago. And I actually represented him in the industry. So an awesome connection. All these things come back up. But I live here. I serve in LA. I serve mostly in the northeast and northwest quadrants of LA. Burbank, where the Market Center is at, my office is at Burbank that I'm associated with Nick and Mike. They're clients of yours as well. So I'm associated with them at the Burbank office, and that's pretty much right in the center of LA County. And LA County is like the 10th largest state. The population is very dense here. So it's as large as most states are, and the production here is off the charts. Even when it's down in LA, it's good.
Yeah, it's crazy, all of the business that happens out there. How has, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, but how has COVID-19 affected the way you look at real estate today? And give me an idea of some of the things that you're coaching and helping your agents do differently.
That's a great question, and it's COVID-19 has changed how we do business, or the tools that we use to do business in a big way. Now, how we do business is still the same. We want to get in relationship with people, get face to face. However we do that, that's how that works. However, this new piece called virtual reality, or the virtual concept, is everyone on the planet knows how to use a Zoom type technology. Name whatever you want to name it. People know how to use it. And that part we can bring to our business for efficiency. I see it in coach too. It saves your client so much time, as opposed to running around to take a look at 10 properties and you're not quite sure of them. Walk through in a virtual way on Zoom call through these properties with your clients and narrow down that they need to see for two reasons. One, their time value. Two is there's a safety issue still at play today with the COVID virus, unknown what's happening. And I have no answer to that. Just play by the rules. Be careful. So if we can narrow that down, we create safety and we create productivity and performance metrics that are, I think, off the charts in terms of time.
I love that. We'll talk more about COVID here in a minute, but there's a lot of other social unrest with equality and the situation we have and the demonstrations that are happening. And you've always been someone that I have a lot of respect for your ability to be inclusive. What's your take on what's going on in the world right now? And is it a good thing? Do you think we'll see some change as a result of it?
Time is going to tell us about changes. And, in my lifetime, I've seen a lot go on with, especially in relation, in terms of racial relations. And, I grew up in Mississippi, and I remember third grade when the schools were integrated locally for us, and that impact of change, how it affected the community. And it ultimately, it was unnerving in the beginning, and then over time it becomes such a norm. Now, how could you not have a mixed environment or a mixed community anymore, right? So change in the beginning is challenging and difficult, and then over time, if we stick to our principles and our values as a country and as a culture, it's going to be fine. I believe it's good. Is it challenging? Yes. But what we have is that there's just a ton of pent up resentment right now for a lot of different reasons. It could be, social imbalance. It could be economic. There's a lot of reasons, but social imbalance is really one of them. Resentment has built up to resistance, and now we're in sort of this loss of control place, and people are exacting revenge. And that's where we got into the looting and the rioting. And it's frustration. People don't feel heard. And what's happened over the past 10 days, from my perspective, although it's not anywhere close to where we need to be, I think people are beginning to listen on all sides. And that's really what it comes down to. We know this. We're in negotiations. We're in a business of bringing people together. We're in a business of creating value in people's lives. And so to do that, it's about listening, right? It's communication, speaking and listening being the key to it.
Yeah, for me, and I'll tell you, I've had a lot of soul searching because I mean, I have a mixed race family. We've got lots of different nationalities represented just in my children and my grandchildren. But for me, it's been awareness. It's just created a new level of awareness of how I'm behaving and the things that I say, and the small things that you think are inclusive aren't necessarily. So if the country has awareness that there is inequality, and by being aware, they start to make changes to remove that inequality, then I think that we'll come out of here in a better place. So for me, the biggest impact on this has been, I personally feel like I can do a better job, and then I have awareness, and that awareness gets us talking about it. And so I'm having conversations with kids and my grandkids and my kids' friends, and having conversations that we never had before. And those conversations, I believe, with this next generation are what's going to change, or what's going to create the change that we all are looking for.
I agree. And can I be transparent here, Verl, and kind of go on a
Please.
personal level?
Sure.
Really, this is, I wasn't prepared to actually have this conversation with you today. However, it is something that's been lingering with me, and some of the story from personal talks that we've had before. But I'm intimately aware of how racial division can tear people apart, families apart. And, as a young man, as a baby, my father was a Baptist minister in southern Mississippi in the mid 60s. And he was also a member of the KKK. And he was sentenced for murder. I've never had this public conversation this way before. He was sentenced for murder for being involved in the killing of a man named Vernon Dahmer. And the reason that happened was because the man was black. That was the only reason. And it was a threat to that organization. So he was sentenced to prison and went to the famed Parchman. That's where my father was at as I was growing up. And that whole piece for my entire life has been a part of my life in some way. And I never understood what happened there. And I don't even know the whole story to it. What I know is the outcome of it. And, trying to find a way to love a man, my father, that I have huge disagreements. Now, he's passed away. He just passed away in December. But it was a life of trying to find a way to love a man that I had a lot of differences with. And and to be in that environment. And it was so impactful that as a kid, I went to school under a different name. I actually changed the last name. So if you go back and look up Paul Sessum, he's not around. There was a different guy there.
Really?
Yeah. And so all through my grade school, middle school, the last name was changed. So I was a different person altogether. I just actually went back to my 40th class reunion and high school reunion, and just the idea that I showed up there and no one really knew who Paul Sessum was. and so we had to work on how does Paul Maloney show up through Paul Sessum, right? Because that young man was a different man altogether. So that
Yeah, that's
impact,
fascinating.
really ripped a family apart, and not one family apart, many families. So yeah, I can get that, and I'm, and sometimes I'm ashamed of it, to be honest. I get ashamed of it. I don't know how to talk about racial divide at times because I feel hypocritical in many ways. So it's something that we all work on, right? Is to be present, is to be in a place to listen, and not to be in a place of judgment or agreement or disagreement, to be in a place of being with people, to hear their stories and to hear their plight and to hear their wins and their challenges. And how can we be supportive, whatever it is?
Right. Paul, as you share the story with me, I have all these emotions that come up because, first of all, I know who you are, and I know who you are as a man, and I think that sometimes culturally, because of where we grew up and the house we grew up in, it forms our beliefs, our experiences that we have in life form our belief systems. But for you, that's absolutely true in a different way, meaning you didn't follow the beliefs of your father. There was something inside of you that said, this isn't right. What was the turning point for you?
Um, the turning point for me, and it was going back to integration in third grade, when Mary Stapleton showed up in the third grade classroom. Here was this scared young little lady, right? And it didn't happen. Integration didn't happen in the beginning of the school year. It happened in the beginning of the calendar year. So right in the middle of the school year, everything got turned upside down. And here's this little girl, right, my age, sitting in the room, and everything, and there was no other colored person in the room at all of any color. Everybody was white. And I was thinking about that. And I actually went home and talked to my mother about it. And, it was right around Valentine's Day. And I was afraid, based on conversations that I was hearing, that Mary Stapleton wasn't going to be receiving Valentine's. So as dirt poor, we were dirt poor, like many people have been, as poor as we were, my mom endorsed the fact and allowed me to buy an extra box of Valentines. And I sat down and I wrote a Valentine from every kid in our classroom, because I wanted her to feel inclusive, because she was a human being sitting there, and trying to how it must have felt for her, completely different than me. But I found out I could love her, right? That it was, here's a young girl, I can love this girl. This is let's go from that place. And so my life has been, how do we love and be different, right? We can be different. We can have different points of view, different values, all of that, and still love each other.
I think that I was going through with a client earlier today. I opened up the 10 scrolls from Og Mandino, and I was reading, I will greet this day with love in my heart. And that scroll, while it's in the book, How to Become the Greatest Salesman in the World, is not about being a great salesman. It's about being a great person. And if you greet everybody and you silently and say to yourself, I love you first, and then go into the conversation, it changes the nature of the interaction. It doesn't matter who they are. I didn't say, I will love you only if I'm married to you, or I'll love you only if I think I can sell you something. He says, I will greet this day with love in my heart, and all manner of men will I love. And I think that that's what you exemplify and are a good example of that, Paul.
Thank you. I attempt to live that daily, really from a place of love.
And so during this, so I'm going to use the current events, the social justice that's happening and the social awareness that's occurring, as well as the COVID-19. It's like a perfect storm of things. I saw Starbucks this morning announced a bunch of closings. We're seeing an increased number of COVID patients in Arizona, like a second wave. There's a lot of uncertainty. When you look at how your clients or your agents or your fellow coaches have responded during this time, what are you proud of? What do you look at and say, you know what, this has been really moving to me to watch how people respond in a positive way? What are you seeing that you're proud of?
What I see is people finding a way to, if I'm understanding this question right, the agents that I'm working with, the teams that I'm working with, they're finding a way to respond that can be meaningful immediately to their neighborhoods, however that is, whether it's food or whether it's conversation or whether it's listening or changing and having dialogue and conversations inside of their team of how their core values stand up in this challenge. And one of the things I've actually been working on over the past month is, based on everything that we've been going through, let's get back to our core values and review what they are, break them down to how they apply and how do they apply today, and are they valid for you now? Do you need to add something to your core value because you weren't thinking that way a few months ago? So that's been a big aha moment, and it's created the teams have gotten tighter as a result of it. And I actually had a client that was stressing the other day because he's so committed to his values, right? And this is off topic of COVID, but he had been working, and one of his top 50 clients came in and ended up being this purchase. And the purchase was ended up being, a $1.3, $1.6 million purchase. Well, as a team leader, he always gave the buyers to his agents and his buyer's agents. But in this case, because it was a top 50, it started in one place and ended in the other. And he was like, he says, I feel guilty and I feel like I'm not in alignment. And I said, well, how are we going to correct the alignment there? Because if that's how you're feeling, we got to correct this. What are you going to do? So he went back just like yesterday. He went back to his team and he said, I am feeling horrible and this is why. And they were like, dude, come on, it's great. You deserve it. You're a great guy, of course. And the support was there for him, right? So getting back to, sometimes as leaders, we can be in that place of feeling out of alignment with our values. What can we do? Talk about it. Put it on the table and get connected again, because everything, whether we're in a societal situation or in our businesses, our core value runs the basis of all of us. And if we're out of sync and we're feeling kind of edgy or something's off, go back to your core values and go, why? Just ask yourself why and be with the feeling for a minute. Kind of ask yourself those questions and say, I'm off because I'm not in alignment in some way. What's the way? Now let me have a conversation about that and correct it.
This is like core value day for me. I started off my first coaching call this morning, helping a brand new team establish and get their mind around core values. Then I interviewed two of our other coaches, Lee Tessier and Brooke Sines, on a Workman live cast, which was an hour long, on how do you create core values and culture. It's interesting that today that you bring up, when something's not right and you feel like you're out of alignment, you go back to your core values and figure out why and be open and communicate about that. It's like every call I've been on has had this core value thread. Is the universe trying to tell me something?
I think the universe is telling us all something right now, right? For sure. We're all having to listen. I believe, we take it for granted. And in times of shift and change and challenge, to integrate it into the process of this shift and change is a powerful balancing tool. Will it make things easier or harder? That's sort of irrelevant. It will illuminate whatever is the root of something, right? Success or challenge, either way it goes. And so you can come back to those principles that you and the team developed and, have joy. For instance, one of yours inside of Workman Success is to have fun, right? You want to be around people who are having fun. And this is a great value to question today. Are we actually having fun? Are we so distracted and so overwhelmed that we're stepping away from fun or not? And if we're stepping away from fun, how are we going to resolve that? And it's like, take your shoes off, let's go down to the park and let's hit a few balls and then come back, and just enjoy ourselves for a minute. So all of these pieces we have to bring back in to and examine, or else we'll drift away from that is us.
I love that. By the way, Michelle Wilson says, Paul is amazing.
She's amazing. She's a rock star, actually, and I just love working with her. So just a fantastic lady.
Yeah. So for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Verl Workman with Workman Success Systems. On our Wednesday flash briefing, I have amazing master coach Paul Sessum here with us, and we're just talking about what's going on in the world right now, what he's proud of, what's going on with the COVID-19, how he's helping his clients succeed. I'll encourage each of you as you join the Facebook Live just to say hello to Paul, let him know where you're from, and also, Paul's one of the people in the world that I consider the givers. And if you have any questions about your business, about challenges you're having, or how you can grow, now's a great time to ask one of our master coaches, and he'll give you the straight answer. One thing about Paul is he's not going to hold back. He's going to tell you how to really find the success that you're looking for. So I encourage you to ask questions. So Paul, I'm out of curiosity right now. What are the biggest challenges you're seeing in the marketplace around the country? With we have people in Canada and United States. What is there any consistencies and challenges that they're currently facing that you're hearing?
The biggest challenge is hesitation. There's not certain and clear of how to move forward, and it's exactly what we're talking about today. Move forward with having an open and honest conversation, and get back to where we can be of service. So questions and asking questions, and being okay with picking up the phone to call people and have conversations with them and see how we can get back on track. I think we're past the point of are we safe from COVID? I think that conversation is past. I think we're today at a place that's like, hey, 4 months ago, we were in conversation about this, and a lot of it has happened. Are you cool? Are you okay? What's grounding you today? Are you still looking to move forward with your life as we were talking about it? And that's either a yes or no. Either way, it's a great conversation starter, right? And
Right.
dig in deeper to go where you can find out more of how to be of service. Your value, I think I loved, and this came up, was our coaches training that we did on Zoom, which was service regardless of opportunity. I have adopted that. I love that concept. And we have such great leaders at Workman that live by that concept. Let me serve you. And from that, there will be an opportunity. It may not look like a sale, but there will be an opportunity there. Second thing today. Go ahead.
Sometimes the opportunity, Paul, is the feeling. It's I'm serving because I don't want anything, and that makes the service even more valuable to me anyway. And when it doesn't even matter. Silly thing. This is just a silly thing. So we're getting ready to go on a family vacation, and we pulled the jet skis out today, and one of them doesn't start. One of them didn't start, and so I called the service center, and they said we're 5 weeks out. I mean, we're leaving on Saturday. And so I called another one. He says, we're 5 weeks out. And I said, let me talk to your service manager. And the service manager came on. I says, look, it's throwing a code. Could be a dead battery. Can you just hook the machine up? And if it is, give me a new battery. And he said, yeah, send somebody out. So Nate went out there and took the jet ski out, and he put it on there. And it was definitely the battery, gave him a new battery. And Nate came back and he said, yeah, the guy was totally cool. He didn't even charge me. He just took care of it. And when I called him after Nate got back, I said, hey, and by the way, Cleve's going to call Nate and say, why are you leaving the office to deal with jet skis during your workday? Right. And so I called him up and I said, hey, Mike, this is Verl. I just want to say thank you for taking good care of us. And he was blown away that I had called. That little serve, because he was willing to serve and not sell me something and not try and upsell something and not try and, he just took, it changes a vacation when you have one person that just does a small thing that is no big deal to him, but it was a big deal to us. And I just love people like that. And when I see good examples of serve regardless of opportunity, I want to shout it from the rooftops. The name of the company was High Adventure Motorsports in Salt Lake City. And they just did a great job. I just love that.
I do too. That's fantastic. I love those commitments of people that are serving and being a part of a community, right? And that's the other thing too today, is just to bring yourself back down to the noise is much bigger than we are, and we don't have to listen to it all. So let's bring it back down to where we're at. This is where I'm at, and I can impact here and make a change here just by going to check a battery. Okay, you need a new battery. That's all they needed to know. That makes all the difference in the world for 14 or 15 people right there, right?
or 20 or 30. It's a big group. Yeah. It's the Workman family Lake Powell trip.
A bus to take everybody out there.
Yeah. it's gonna be a lot of fun. Looking forward to all my brothers and sisters are coming. So we haven't all
Wow.
gotten together since my mother passed away. So this is a fun time where everybody will be there and we'll be able to share with each other and reconnect. It's a big family. It's hard to get everyone together as you get older. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, so Paul, I got another question for you. So, as you're developing teams and you're helping teams grow and you're working with team leaders, I would like to know what are some of the biggest things that you see as challenges as a coach? Is it the way that the teams will follow what the team leader does? Is it the establishing the core values? Is it creating success habits? What do you see as a coach that, boy, if agents came into coaching with these level of skills or with this attitude, it would make all the difference in the world. What's the one thing you wish that people had that is the hardest to change?
Um, an understanding that others aren't going to fix you. It's as a team leader, we're looking to pour into others to be of service to them, to help them grow. And taking the time to find those people, right? The most of what I get and hear is that, do an interview, we spend 15 minutes, and you may look at a disc profile and have, 20-minute conversation with somebody and make a determination about hiring or not. And that bringing somebody onto the team, regardless of what position it is, will impact everyone on the team. Give that respect to the team that you're building, to yourself, and to the person that we're about to change their life. If we accept that job opportunity and say, hey, you get the job with us, you get to work with us, that's awesome. Now we're obligated to really make it work, do everything in our power to make it work. That means it's going to be double duty. You're going to have, as a team leader, you got to pour into this to make sure it's going to happen, to make sure the person can be successful. Now, does it work 100% all the time? No. But it's about taking the time. And I'm an extremist on this one. So, I can go really to the far side of it where I can take building the team, literally take 6 or 7 months to hire somebody when they're in a position of leadership, because that person's going to affect everything that we do. And if it's not the right mindset, if it's not the giving attitude, if it's not the I'm willing to learn, if it's not the, moving up a ladder of I get to do this and I will do this, right? That's the person I've always looked for. And they're not easy to find that matches your culture. So it's really being the patience of hiring and knowing who you're after. Really get clear. There's a story, a friend of mine, and I believe this comes from maybe a Darren Hardy concept, if I'm not mistaken, but he was, he wanted to have a relationship in his life. He had been a, party man and, independent guy, and he knew that he had reached a place in his life to have a relationship, and he was struggling finding that. And a good friend of his said, well, you know what, why don't you just write down everything that you want in that partner? And he did. And he took it back to her, and she said, great, this is a fantastic list. And then she says, are you all of these things? Because if you're not these things, you're not going to be able to get that person in your life. So you have to be that you're looking for. Same thing in our businesses, right? A team leader, if they want somebody excellent, we have to be excellent. If they want somebody who is committed, then we have to be committed. We have to do the work and set the example. So it's always doing the work, setting the example.
Paul, I could listen to you for hours. As I'm sitting here thinking about it, you've spurred a couple of thoughts in me, and one is a little bit of a unique thought that I've never actually looked at hiring people the way you just described. Is that usually we hire, I do a gap analysis, right? Or we do a missing persons report, and then we hire to the gaps. And so here's a gap that I have. I'm going to hire this person to fill the gap. And what you just said to me is they're not going to fix me. They may solve some problems in the business, but I need to hire them with the responsibility that I'm going to develop them and I'm going to be responsible for their success in their role. That is such a different attitude towards hiring. I'm not hiring them to fix me. I'm hiring them so that I can serve them. And by serving them and developing them, that creates the culture that I want inside of my office. And if my employees knew that was my attitude, I think it would change the dynamics. I think that's a very powerful insight on how to look at people towards hiring.
I think so too, and it works. And you know what? That goes back to the culture, and this is part of your values. And in terms of Workman success, is if we create we develop people to the place that they can do this on their own, but they choose not to because the culture is so strong. And you
Yeah.
see that when you look at Lee's team and you look at Christie's team and you look at these teams that have been developing over time, and the concepts are there. They're embedded in what we do with Workman Success for sure. They're embedded in there. We just, maybe how we say it is like, let's pour into others to help them be successful and create a world and an environment that they just don't want to leave. That's all, because they're cared for. Everybody wants to be cared for and make a lot of money. Let's not get away from that. They do want to make money for sure. Let's show them how.
Right. And it's not, but it's not about the money. It's about how it's going to affect their life.
Right.
People want to have success, and money is a measure of that success. They want to feel and be successful. And I think it's okay to have good financial goals and to have strong financial goals and to expand them beyond what your experience has been in your life. Ron Howard says, "Good stuff, guys. My favorite one." Loves the interaction that you're having with me today, Paul, and I love it too. I'm going to give you one last question, and this is a tactical question, and that is during the combination of things that are going on in the world, our social unrest, the COVID-19 stuff. Could you give me one or two real specific things that you recommend everybody focuses on if they want to grow in a time where many are struggling? You like these impromptu questions? You have to think.
I have to think about that. So one or two things that would help them grow. I would, and advising as well, is get back to creating your prospecting as a team and as a group. Build the energy and the commitment and the camaraderie and being together, prospecting. We've been so isolated from each other that some of our bad habits have fallen into place again, or we've just gotten off of our game. We're out of kilter is what I call it all the time. We're just out of kilter. And bringing everybody back to, I love food, so back to the table. And we know what our recipes are. We have family recipes of delicious food. And we've created that in our teams. And since we've been separated, we've been missing that food. And we've kind of gone on a ramen diet, right? We just evaporated, and it's not healthy and it's not good and sustaining. So I would bring everyone back together. And even if your offices aren't open yet, you can use Zoom and get on Zoom, do your prospecting time together, play your games so that you can win and create and keep your culture going. So that's the one thing, is togetherness is the big part of it. Another thing that they can do is go back, not just to this year's leads, but go back to last year's, 2 years ago. Revisit those who haven't come through. There's a lot of potential still sitting there. And because we get distracted, we forget that those leads that have been around for maybe 24, 36 months, there's gold in those hills. And we got to go hiking. Let's get back out there, pack a picnic lunch, and let's go. And go say hello and see what they're up to, see what's changed. Lives are changing because our whole environment, our whole way of thinking is changing. Schools, how we do school, that's going to change. I don't know how, but it will. How we're working from not being in an office in many places. Is our houses too big, too small? We don't know. It's a good time to check in to see how the house is functioning, though. Are the wheels still on the car? That sort of concept. Yeah.
Okay, so I love those. So I'm just gonna revisit them. I want to make sure I got it. So number one is we got to get the family recipes out. We got to go back to the success principles that help us get where we are, and we have to start going back to those daily success habits. And you talked specifically about prospecting. You got to prospect, spend every day, and have a block amount of time where you're looking for new business. The second thing you talked about was specifically you said we need to go back and we need to resurrect the dead leads. There's a database full of what we consider dead leads, and these are people who have had life events happen since the last time we reached out, and we need to re-engage them, call to serve, not to sell, and see what opportunities present themselves. And you believe that there's tremendous amount of gold in those hills, and the only way to get there is to go camping. So let's go camping in the hills of the dead lead pile. Matter of fact, that's a challenge. I would love to challenge everybody that's listening to this Facebook Live call to go in to your database and look at everything that's old and see if you can create some new business there, and come back in and share it with us on Facebook. Tell us what success you had and let us know that you're doing the things that Paul suggested today. Paul, I love your energy. I love your willingness to share. On behalf of all of us at Workman Success Systems, our group that's online, thank you for being here. And I promise you that your giving heart is going to continue to pay you back in spades. There will be a tremendous amount of opportunities that come your way as the result of the giving and the attitude that you have towards your life. Thanks for being transparent and sharing with us today.
Thank you, Verl. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week on our flash briefing, where we're going to have the one and the only Brooke Sines will be sharing with us. Brooke Sines has got two teams, one in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and one in North Carolina. That she's just opening, having tremendous success. She's hired her fourth agent and possibly her fifth one today. And she's going to talk about being a leader in two different locations and the impact that's having on her business and the opportunities that it's creating. So stay tuned, and we'll see you all on our next Facebook Live.